Hello again, music-loving brothers and sisters near and far. I first bought this album when it came out in 1984, and I bought it on cassette. Remember those? They were the most portable things we had, and we could drop them right into our Walkman, or Walkmans, or whatever it is, whatever the plural of that is. And we could run around, skateboard, bike, do whatever we wanted to do. But I eventually did buy Rush, Grace Under Pressure on LP, vinyl LP. And this is one of the great overlooked guitar albums of all time, in my opinion. But not everyone overlooked it. Also, there's been a lot of talk lately about whether we're going to see Rush 3.0. I have some thoughts about that. So, hello again. I'm having a great time talking about some of my favorite albums by my favorite band, Rush, and some others too. Last time I did Boston, who I had a really great history with. But this album right here, I remember when this came out, bought it on cassette, and while a lot of people feel this is one of the more synth-heavy albums of Rush, it actually ended up being an album where Alex Lifeson received a lot of the overdue praise and accolades that he had deserved for years. If you listen to this album, it sounds almost nothing guitar-wise like the guy who would have created Fly By Night back in the 70s. But it is an absolute gem in terms of incredible Alex Lifeson guitar work, unlike anything we'd seen him do before. The songwriting is first rate. It's a darker album, and it sounds, by all accounts, like it was a little tougher to make. They were back in the studio. I believe Steve Lillywhite was slated to be the producer for the album that occurred after Signals, and I guess he just decided to bail. So these guys ended up with Peter Henderson, and it ended up being a great matchup. It gave us the Hentor Sportscaster guitars. And it gave us some incredible songs, even though this seems to have been a really tough album to produce, and it might have contributed to kind of the darker nature. As dark as some of the lyrics and topics were, there were some absolutely beautiful compositions and sounds that came off this album. One of my very favorites is something not too many people talk about. It is the guitar interlude. I'm not even going to call it a solo. I'm going to call it a guitar interlude in the middle of After Image. So I'm not going to play the whole thing. It was just an amazing new sound for Alex Lifeson. It sounded like something he would eventually have arrived at anyway, being the kind of always forward-thinking guitar player that he was. But it was one of those interludes that's right up there with like the solo at the end of Hotel California, where it's more than just a solo. It's actually a little mini composition that's not too gimmicky. It doesn't take you out of the song. It just adds this incredible flavor to the overall song and composition. We kind of saw the same thing in The Pass, which Rush did on Presto, the album that came out in 1989. There was a great, brilliant Lifeson interlude in that one too, and it's just absolutely riveting. Something he became really, really good at over time. So, while this album may have been difficult to make and has kind of darker overtones, there are some phenomenal moments on here. Not the least of which being that Neil started using, to my knowledge, his first forays into electronic percussion with Simmons drums. I believe we saw those for the first time. And Alex ended up receiving Best Overall Guitarist in Guitar Player magazine. So, for my money, I was over the moon. My favorite guitarist was finally getting the dues that he deserved. Now, the other thing that happened on this album guitar-wise, there were some phenomenal licks and riffs and compositions. But my personal favorite, all-time favorite, Alex Lifeson guitar solo occurs on Kid Gloves, on side B of this album. It is one of the craziest Alex Lifeson guitar solos known to man. And he used a really interesting technique on this. So in the 80s, a lot of guys would hit some crazy lick and then end with a dive bomb effect like this. So the effect being that you hit a harmonic and you take the bar down like this. And maybe even do it on the end. With Alex, now he did kind of a version of his own take on something like that, I want to say on a motion detector on power windows, but we'll get into that maybe at another time. Now, with Kid Gloves, there was just a lot of real percussive playing. And I'm not playing it note for note or probably even in the right key, I'm just demonstrating the point. So, then he ends it with a... So it was just a real cool feel in the pocket, amazing percussive playing, something that was really unique to him. And a lot of people say, yeah, but they edited the solo in the studio. Whatever, man. It was Lurks playing it, and for my money, it's the best solo, my favorite personal solo that he has. And that's saying a lot, given that we have 42 years of incredible work from him. So you can hear there's just a lot of really slippery things going on here. Now, in the age of shred in 1984, it would have been really easy for any guitarist to just go the Eddie Van Halen route. And I love Eddie Van Halen. I miss him dearly. Or the Steve Vai route or the Vito Bratta route. That was not going to happen with Alex. He was going to go the Alex Lifeson route. And this really is, for my money, kind of the Alex Lifeson take on shred. We saw a similar kind of vibe happening in the Analog Kid on Signals. There was kind of a similar vibe happening at the end of The Spirit of Radio, where it just felt like huge, massive amounts of energy instead of a guitar solo were coming and just hitting you in the face right out of the speakers in the best possible way. That's kind of where Alex excelled. He could have gone the route of just imitating Eddie Van Halen or Randy Rhoads or any of the guys who were great at that time. But he kind of assimilated his influences of the time, which were Alan Holdsworth, Andy Summers from The Police, and Moodier from Ultravox. And it came out sounding like none of those guys, but was an excellent nod to where his head was at. You know, one of the bigger songs off here was Distant Early Warning, and I remember when the video came out, I was just like, because back then we just didn't have easy access to visuals of our favorite bands. That was an amazing video. I never really did see the After Image video when it came out until many years later, but that's a phenomenal video too. You get to kind of see, obviously they're lip syncing the performance, but you get to see Neil's kit. You get to see the black Strat that Alex is using and some of the chord changes that he's playing throughout the song. These are really amazing times to be watching and hearing your favorite band. Another favorite track of mine off here is Body Electric. It's got a really angular, unusual rhythm for Neil. It kind of creates the whole dystopian vibe, digital dystopian vibe, where an android is trying to escape this servitude that he's been placed under. Amazing track. And I'm sure it has probably created pin numbers for most of us, which I will speak no further about. At any rate, absolutely one of my favorite albums. We'd be remiss if we didn't at least mention the dark epic Red Sector A, which of course deals with the Nazi death camps established in World War II. I'm not playing it here just because we tend to run into copyright issues there, but it was only a few years ago that I realized Getty's parents had actually been imprisoned, survived, been liberated, and built new lives in Canada, essentially triumphing over that Nazi regime. And while Getty lost his dad at a very young age, comparatively, his mom lived a long time, was able to return to, I believe, the site of her camp, essentially completing the circle of triumphing over one of the darkest periods in modern history. And while the song doesn't deal explicitly with their exact experience, it's certainly one of the more epic tunes ever produced by Rush, and I believe one of the first times that we actually hear Neil really utilizing those Simmons pads that we talked about. Again, one of my very favorite albums of all time. The songwriting is phenomenal, first rate. Lyrics are incredible. The playing is just top of the top. And Alex Lifeson finally got some of the dues that he had been missing, in my opinion, for many years, and had been deserving all that time. So yeah, here it is, Grace Under Pressure. Phenomenal album. In terms of Rush 3.0, I would love to see Geddy and Alex coming back together. I really would. I would love it. I would prefer that it not be called Rush, just out of respect and honor for the incredible globe-changing impact of Neil Peart, both as a lyricist and a drummer. I mean, maybe call it Lee Lifeson or the Cygnus Family Singers or the Syrinx Project, something along those lines. But I'd love to see them create new music. I think in the last couple days I've seen some posts where Alex talks about sort of the unlikelihood of him getting back on the road. Arthritis is still kind of impacting him. And obviously those two want to be playing at a very high level. The last thing you really want is to be on the road and standing on stage going, I really kind of wish I'd been in better shape for this gig. Not that that's ever happened to me or anything, but I've read about it. No, it's the worst feeling. And I think hearing new music from Geddy and Alex, and maybe a residency of some sort where they're doing less road time, or they can stay stationary at a theater in Vegas or something like that where we can all travel and see them in some new configuration. It doesn't even have to be a three-piece. My personal feeling, I would love to see Todd Sucherman or Simon Phillips behind the kit, able to do whatever new music that Geddy and Alex come up with and hitting some of the old Rush classics to pay homage of what we obviously have all been missing for years now. At any rate, one of my all-time favorite albums, Rush, Grace Under Pressure, the first album sequentially that Rush did without longtime producer Terry Brown. Hugh Syme, once again, creating the artwork. And I don't want to have anybody miss out on any of that. One of the great visual wordplay pieces of all time, and a Hugh Syme masterpiece. At any rate, there you have it. Grace Under Pressure. Let me know what you think of this album. I'm sure some of you are about my age and remember when it came out, and even if you're not, if you have great memories of these songs and this album, let me know. We'll talk to you again soon.